Alright, these are your notes for section 5.6, part 2 on FOILing, which is type of multiplying, okay? Now, this is the second video for part 2 of 5.6, and again, all we're doing is changing the way the problem looks, okay? We're going to FOIL in this video. Most of you already know what FOIL stands for. FOIL stands for first, outer, inner, and last. And that's how we multiply them together. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to take two radical expressions and we're going to multiply them together using FOIL. Now, one thing that causes people some problems is they don't understand when they need to FOIL. So I want you to notice the differences in these two problems. This one here is negative 4 root 5 times 3 root 6. Notice that this is one term and this is one term. Okay? There's no plus or minus sign between the numbers in the radical. Okay? It's one term being multiplied by another one term. That's not a case where we would use FOIL. This is just something that you would multiply, which we learned about in our videos the other day. Okay? Where we just take the numbers out in front and the radicands underneath and we multiply together and simplify. That's a case where we would do this. This example over here is a FOIL case. Notice we have signs between them, okay? What this does is it splits those into two unlike terms, okay? Which means they can't be combined together. When you have those, this is a case where we would FOIL, okay? Because we have two things in the first set of parentheses and two things in the second. With that other example, the one we just looked at, we only have one thing in the first set of parentheses, one thing in the second set of parentheses. So we do not FOIL that. But this one, we do, because we have two things in the first set, two things in the second set. Before we get on to our examples, I want to show you this. We have, in parentheses, 2 minus the square root of 3 squared. So we have the quantity in the parentheses squared. This is a FOIL problem, okay? Gets a lot of people, and you've seen it before. You've seen it when we factored. But this catches a lot of people. They don't realize that they need to factor this, okay? What you do, remember, is rewrite it out next to itself. Now they're identical, they're the same, but you have two terms in the first set of parentheses, two terms in the second. So it's a FOIL problem. You would use first, outside, inside, last to solve it, okay? So keep that in mind. We're not going to do an example of that in the video, but if you see that, realize that it's a FOIL problem. Okay, we have two examples to go through. The first one is the quantity 4 square root 2 plus 7 times 4 square root 2 minus 7. And we're going to FOIL this because there's two things in the first set of parentheses, two things in the second, two unlike terms that don't combine. Alright, so we're going to do the first. 4, and when we multiply, remember, we looked at this the other day, we multiply the outside numbers and the radicands together. So 4 times 4 is 16. And 2 times 2 is 4. Now, we'll simplify that in a second. We won't do that quite yet, but we'll do that at the end. Okay, the outside, there's no radical on this second number, so we're just going to multiply it by the number out in front. 4 times negative 7 is negative 28, and we're going to tack on the end root 2. Inside 2 is the same idea, except it's a positive 28. 7 times 4 is 28, and we tack on a root 2 on the end. And then we multiply the last two. 7 times negative 7 is minus 49. Alright, now we're going to simplify and combine like terms. This first term is going to simplify. 4 is really a perfect square. So it's 16 times 2, which ends up being 32. Okay, 32. These cancel each other out because they're identical, but one's positive, one's negative. So these cancel, and we have minus 49. So we have 32 minus 49 gives us an answer of negative 17. Now, I will warn you, this is a special type, and you'll see this in the next video why this happens, where we get a whole number answer. That's fine to do that. More often than not, you will not get a whole number answer. You'll get an answer that has radicals in it. It is okay if that happens, and the reason that happened is because the inside two numbers canceled themselves out. In our original problem, they were identical, except the sign in the middle was opposite. Okay, and when that happens, you get a whole number answer, and I'll talk more about that when we talk about the fractions in the next video. But more often than not, you'll have radicals in your answer. So it's okay to have radicals in your answer. It's okay to get a whole number. Just make sure that you've done your math correctly. All right, one more example here. This one we have 2 square roots of 3 plus 3 square roots of 5 times 3 minus the square root of 3. Notice that it's different than the first one. In that first example, they were identical except for the signs. That's why we got a whole number answer. Here, we're probably not going to get a whole number answer. So we multiply the first together. 2 times 3 is 6. And we tack square root of 3 on the end because that second number didn't have a radical on it. Outside, 2 times, there's really a 1 out in front here. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. 3 times 3 is 9. So negative 2 square roots of 9. Inside, 3 times 3 is 9. And we tack a 5 on the root 5 on the end of that. And then the last one, we have 3 square roots of 5 times negative 1 square root of 3. Well, 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. 5 times 3 is 15. Alright, now we want to simplify and see if we can combine anything. That 9 is going to break down. The square root of 9 is really 3, so this becomes negative 2 times 3, which is negative 6. The 3 won't break down, the 5 won't break down under the radical, neither will the 15. The 15 is just 3 times 5. So we have 6 square roots of 3 minus 6 plus 9 square roots of 5 minus 3 square roots of 15. And that's going to be the final answer. The reason that's the final answer is because none of those other radicals will break down. And remember, if we're going to add and subtract radicals, they have to be the same. I have nothing with the same radical, so nothing will combine. And we leave it like that. It doesn't need to be written in a particular order. It can stay the way that it is. Okay? So unlike the first example where we got a whole number answer, in our second one, nothing combined, and we have a whole bunch of radicals, and that's fine too, okay? If you have any questions, go back and watch the video. Most of you know how to FOIL, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal. Just do pay attention to your math when you're multiplying the radicals together, when you're FOILing, okay? Make sure you're multiplying them correctly. If you do have questions, bring them to class next time, and those are your notes for section 5.6, part 2 on FOILing.